What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Three Gyms Talk Hockey. We got a really exciting episode this week. We gave a draft preview last episode. This episode, we get to talk about the draft and then look ahead into free agency, which opens up on July 1st. Guys, obviously, as an Islander fan, there was a much different direction I expected the draft to go for them in terms of the first round, but I'll say from now, I'm not disappointed with how things turned out. Milko, you got some that I wanted, but it's okay. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I kind of want to start off just going over our top 10 predictions. I won out of the competition, but full disclaimer, we were all under 50% and nobody looked really good past pick number 4. So I was 4 for 4 to start the draft. Doza, you were 3 for 4. And Milko, you got the two obvious picks right. Congratulations. You were 0 for 8
you.
after that.
Thank you very much.
But, fellas, what were your initial thoughts after that first round of the entry draft this year?
Okay, overall, very interesting first round. Decent amount of moves were happening. Kind of like we had intended going into the draft. I mean, outside of the top 2 picks, it was kind of a toss-up on where everyone would go and where people would fall into the mix, what teams' draft boards looked like in those draft rooms. And, I think a lot of these picks were the right move for their organizations. Um, there were some sneaky picks in here that we'll talk about in a little bit, but I was very entertained throughout this entire first round.
Yeah, very interesting first round. Top 10 picks, I would say the most surprising part is that there wasn't a trade. No trades in the top 10. I think we all expected some sort of action to go down, and there was action after that, but nothing in the top 10. I was really surprised about that. And a couple sneaky players like the Nashville Predators, and we're going to go into all of that. That's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, like you guys said, I think we all had the obvious 1-2 punch in Schaefer and Misa. But after that, it really was a toss-up. I think that there were a lot of shocking picks. For me, one of them was Brady Martin at 5th overall. There was obviously some conversation of him going to Utah at 4. They expressed how much they liked him. I didn't have him going top 5. I had him in the top 10. I had him going, I want to say, 9 to Buffalo. But he got picked at 5. That was probably my most surprising pick of the top 10 personally. But yeah, was there one specific pick that you guys within the top 10 that we spoke about previously that you guys were like, wow, when you heard that name called?
Personally, for me, the Brady Martin thing is kind of interesting because you didn't really hear much about him until maybe 2 weeks out of the draft that, teams are interested in the top 5 and taking him. And personally, I don't know that much about him as a prospect. I know he's one of those more like physical power forward type forwards who's also got a lot of skill. So, if Utah didn't take him, I really had no idea where he's going to go. For me, I'm going to go with the Bruins here. Having James Hagen's fall to them, I did not think that was going to happen considering he was the number 1 ranked player going into this year. He was projected number 1 overall pick. And then to get a guy with that caliber of talent to drop to the 7, especially when you didn't know what the Islanders were going to do, right? They make that big move with Dobson. They get those 2 first-round picks, and then there's all this speculation heading into the draft that the Islanders are going to try to leverage those 2 picks to trade up into the top 10. So as a Bruins fan, I was literally sitting right up in front of my TV begging Don Sweeney to not get rid of this pick. I was like, please. And if honestly, I figured if you didn't trade the pick that we were going to take Jake O'Brien, who I still think is a very talented player, but personally, if I had to pick between Hagens and O'Brien, I would probably take Hagens every time. So that's kind of why that's my pick of the top 10 right there.
Yeah, so my favorite pick, and I think a very good fit, is Porter Martone to the Flyers at 6. I think personally, I really liked Martone's game. I think he might be the best forward in the draft. That might be hot. I think Misa is the best right now, but I really like Martone's game, and I think it's gonna convert to the NHL very well. And the thing on that Nashville pick, I thought that was really interesting too. Is I feel like teams more fell in love with the person, not the player. And because I saw so much stuff on ESPN, how, oh, he's at home today because it's farming season, like great to him. Like he's definitely like a hard nosed kid, humble kid. And that's, you see that in his game because he's a hard hitter. But at 5, I think that is a little too rich for me, for a guy who's doesn't really have a lot of upside, in my opinion. I just think he's going to be a checking line forward, which is valuable in today's game, but not at 5.
What I'm gonna add to what you just said is I completely agree. That's why heading into the draft, Milko, like you said, nobody knew what the Islanders were gonna do with the picks that they got for Dobson in the trade earlier in the day. But that is why I thought that Utah would be very willing to drop. Maybe 16, 17, the picks that the Islanders got weren't going to be the picks that they used to get Martin, but I did think that Utah liked them. That's why I'm using them as an example. But even Nashville taking them at 5, I think that was just way too high. So I didn't even think of it in that way that you just said, but I like the way you said they fell in love with the person, not the game, not the player. Even though he is a spectacular player, I had him in my top 10 as well. But I mean, they must have either really seen something that they liked, or they heard rumblings that Utah liked them and they decided to take a shot for them. So I like the way you put that. I completely agree with everything that you said. But one thing that I want to talk about, obviously, I'm an Islander fan. Milko, you're a Bruins fan. You brought up Hagens. The one thing that I want to say is they tried. Matthew Darsh did put an attempt to put that combinations to bring Shagans home, but it didn't work out. It's not a picture perfect world. I can't be mad for what happened. The Islanders did pick up 2 really good players, Victor Eklund and Aitchison, with the 16th and 17th overall picks. I thought that they were going to move them, but they didn't. It worked out in their favor. But how cool would it have been to see the hometown kid come back home, but instead now he's staying in the city that he plays college hockey in. So he's going to be calling Boston home for more years than he expected when he first stepped foot on Boston College.
I mean, I feel like being an Islanders fan going into this draft, there's a lot to be excited for, especially hearing all these reports that the Islanders were going to try to make that push to try to get Hagens. And if you can come out of the first round with Matthew Schaefer, the best defenseman in the draft, and then you also get a guy like Hagens who could potentially be the best forward in the draft. I mean, you don't get that very often on top of the hometown story. I mean, I would be smiling across my whole face for the rest of the day if that happened. Unfortunately, things didn't happen that way, but it was very interesting the entire day to see how everything would play out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were like, "Oh, we're not happy that we moved Dobson, blah 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 blah." But at the end of the day, we didn't move Dobson in an attempt to get Hagens. That's just how it played out. We could have used Dobson to trade for a pick. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I kind of have a question for you actually.
Shoot.
Once Hagens got taken off the board, did you think the Islanders were still going to try to move the picks to try to trade back up into the top 10?
I'm going to be no, not into the top 10, but I did think that they were going to trade the picks. To be completely honest, I almost figured that they would try to put a package together for someone like Jordan Kyrou. Trade the picks, maybe some other assets, whatever it came down to, but I thought they would have flipped the picks for a player like Jordan Kyrou, just an NHL-ready superstar, whoever that may have been. But no, I didn't expect them to trade back up. Yeah, I mean, I think that the Islanders kind of took what they were given, the hand that they were dealt, and they made the most of it. I heard that apparently a trade, I don't know exactly which team it was, because the Islanders did try to trade for picks between 4 and 7, but supposedly they had a trade agreed upon with a certain organization, and when that pick was on the clock, they gave Matthew Darsh a call and they said, put Callum Ritchie in that deal. That was too much, not worth the asking price. They decided to keep the picks that they had. I mean, I'm not going to complain too much. I mean, Michael, I want to put this over to you right now. Obviously, as a Ranger fan, you guys forfeited your pick to the Penguins. Are you still okay with that, seeing how this draft kind of unraveled?
I mean, yeah, I'm still okay with it. I think there was a lot of good players that fell. We both had Eklund at 10, and the Islanders ended up getting him at 16, which I thought was a great pickup. I think he was a consensus top 10, top 12 guy. I still like them giving the pick away because, like I said in the last time we talked about this, it gives them flexibility to trade at the deadline. If they're good, they could trade the pick away, package it with something, and get better. Or if they're bad and they don't look like they're going to make the playoffs, they just got the chance of Gavin McKenna. I mean, everyone has banking on that chance. So, like, why not? And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and kind of, I mean, I feel like one thing that a lot of people have been talking about is how many first round picks the Flyers have had. And I kind of want to point out the fact that the Islanders ended up with 3 first round picks in this draft, and they still have another 2 for next year's first round. So the Islanders have a lot of assets to work with right now. And quite honestly, as an Islander fan, I don't think that Matthew Darsh has done anything wrong this far. At least for me. Obviously, I questioned a couple things on draft day, but then again, the way that you feel in the moment isn't how everything kind of pans out at the end of the day. So when I woke up on Saturday morning, I was like, you know what? We're in a good position. Look, 365 days ago, the Islanders are nowhere near where they were now. So I think this first day of the draft was very franchise altering for the Islanders. And just because of the first overall pick, I kind of want to touch up on when Matthew Schaefer did get his name called and he put on that Islander jersey for the first time. I feel like anybody from people in LA to people at UBS Arena where I was at the watch party watching, and everywhere in between kind of felt the emotion of him walking up to the stage, putting on that jersey and kind of seeing something that we haven't seen before. He lost his mom in February of 2024 to cancer. He's very open about speaking about her, and I think that's awesome. But when he got on that stage, we kind of saw a certain emotion that we've never seen before. So I feel like that was just like really, really unique. And what the Islanders did with the ribbon and the initials on the back of the jersey was just a unique touch, something that I think sports fans will be talking about for many, many years to come.
World class from the Islanders for doing that. I mean, great story coming out. I mean, unfortunate story for Matthew Schaefer, but I think it really boosts his character, and I think his mom is going to be a big factor in helping him in his journey along the NHL. I only wish the best for him, and I think he has such high potential that he really doesn't have a ceiling, and it's going to be really interesting to see, you know, if the Islanders do intend on bringing him right onto the team or if they want him to stay in the O. I think there's a lot of interesting things that can be done, and honestly, couldn't be happier that he went number one. Tremendous meaning for him and his family. But he's got a journey ahead of him, so it'll be cool to see what happens. Definitely rooting for him the whole way, though.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was great by the Islanders. It was unbelievable seeing that. You don't really see these prospects, have a story, like, especially in the NHL. I feel like there's not many stories that go on, and seeing that was great. And I think everyone felt the emotion. I was watching it with some Islander fans, and I said, "This kid seems like such a good kid. I hate that I'm going to be rooting against him, and maybe not this year, but in down the next 5-10 years, I'll be rooting against him, which sucks because he's such a great kid, strong kid, 17 years old, tough
Yeah,
to
I
go
mean,
through."
think about the maturity that kid has at 17 to be able to like go on video and talk about all this that he's been through. I mean, this kid's 17. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, like, right now, obviously, the main story is about his mom. It's terrible what happened. Like, nobody should have to go through that. But then a couple months before whatever happened with his mom, he lost his billet mother when he was playing in Erie to an apparent suicide. And later down the line, the owner of the Erie Otters also passed. So figure this kid's had a rough few month span. So yeah, like we've said, credit to him, 17 years old. It just shows the character, shows the maturity. I think it's hard to root against the kid. And obviously I don't think that's bias at all. I love the kid and his story before he put on an Islander jersey. And I think no matter what jersey he put on, everyone's rooting for him. But the one thing I will say is that rivalry will become intense. Dozer from draft day points out, he goes, I want to beat the Rangers every time we play them. So it'll be exciting, whether it's this season coming up or the following season. Yeah, we got some excitement in New York.
One thing I do want to ask, because Melks brought it up about going back to OHL. You didn't say anything about the possibility of him going to play NCAA hockey, college hockey. I think that is a real possibility too. And if I personally was an Islander fan, I kind of would want him to see him at the college level for a year before he comes over.
That's another thing I wanted to talk about, at least at some point during this pod, because he only played 17 games this year. 22 points, played exceptional, had a good World Junior until he got hurt. 17 games isn't a big sample size. I'm not saying I wouldn't want him up in the NHL next year because of his age or because of the sample size, but he doesn't turn 18 until September. So he's one of the youngest players in the draft. He gets taken first overall. If you send him to play NCAA, wherever that may be, for a year, give him an extra year to develop, and then you let him join the club at the end of when his season ends, towards the end of the NHL season, and kind of ease him in that way. I don't hate that, and it's kind of hard for me to tell not what the Islanders are going to do, but what they should do, because you don't know this kid. I've never seen him play in front of my face. So you don't really know the raw talent until I feel like you see it in person. So that's going to be a decision that's going to be made, I feel like, towards the end of the summer, middle of the summer, whatever, after the development camp this week coming up. But it's going to be real interesting to see, because I've heard a lot of people say that they don't think that a lot of players from this draft are going straight into the NHL. Maybe a couple, maybe a handful in the first round. So that'll be interesting to see, because I feel like the one guarantee is almost a Michael Misa or even a Porter Martone. I wouldn't be surprised to see in the NHL as soon as next year. But then again, that really depends on the teams and how they choose to develop their players. But yeah, I'd love to see Schaefer play a year of NCAA. I think that would be great for his development. And also, just considering where the Islanders are right now in their new retool, which they started at the draft.
Yeah,
it's so
crazy.
The first pick that was chosen that I was kind of like wowed by was Pittsburgh at number 11. At number 11, they took Jack Nesbitt, who was ranked at 15 amongst North American skaters.
Wait,
that's the one.
No.
That's 12 at Flyers. That's Flyers at 12. Nesbitt.
That was Flyers at 12. That's on me. But Nesbitt to the Flyers, I apologize. I forgot that the Penguins traded that pick. That was one pick that kind of really scratched my brain. I feel like there were still a lot of really good, or obviously they're all really good, but there were better options to that point of the draft. So did that pick surprise you guys? Did a specific pick surprise you guys? I feel like this draft, as we've said time and time again, has been really hard to predict. That was the first one that kind of wowed me watching the draft.
Yeah, I'll go here, and I got the pick right before you, the one you said, 11, Benjamin Kendall for the Penguins, and I wouldn't say that pick specifically, but I think the Penguins need to start the rebuild. Like, I don't think Dubas has done enough for that organization since he's taken over as GM, and I feel like this was his first big draft. He has he had 2 first round picks, 11 and 12, and then he traded that to the Flyers for 2 more in the late, I think it was 22 and 31. Yeah. And I really don't think they had that good of a draft. They had 11. I thought there was more skilled, more higher potential players on the board. And I think their draft just really surprised me. They didn't really take any high swings, high upside players, and I think they need to right now. And I think Dubas's job should be considered soon for the Penguins.
While we're on this subject, I really liked that the Islanders were able to grab Victor Eklund at 16. I thought that was like kind of a surprise for me that he went that far. And then going back to the whole Pittsburgh topic, because it's so interesting how you have 3 first-round picks. Honestly, I don't know any of the prospects that they got.
Yeah, I didn't say the
I've
other two
never
because
heard
I
of
didn't
any
know
of
them.
these
Not
kids.
gonna
Like,
lie.
no disrespect, obviously, but
William Horkoff and Bill Zonin. Sorry to cut you off.
It's really confusing to understand the direction that Dubas is trying to go here. I mean, he's all across the board. First, he's drafting a 5'11 center. Then he goes and grabs a 6'2 right winger and then a 6'5 center. I honestly don't really understand the direction he's going, and from a lot of the stuff I've seen, Pittsburgh didn't put together their best draft, and they really do need NHL ready guys. Like, I get that you need to build the pool, but Crosby only has so much time left. You have all these picks. I don't necessarily understand the Dubas's view of trying to keep all the picks. If I was him, I feel like you're better off trying to move those picks and grabbing more NHL ready, proven guys. Think about what you could get if you offered a team 3 first-round picks instead of, I guarantee you that most of these guys that they drafted are not going to be NHL ready for at least the next 1 to 2 years. And that is not on the same timeline that Crosby's on. Crosby, give or take, has 3-4 seasons left. He doesn't have time to wait around for Dubas to draft prospects to be ready for Crosby to play with. Like, he's still playing at a very high level, and I think it would have been a lot more beneficial if he could have moved those picks for someone more NHL ready, or even a few players. I really would have been interested to know what trade packages would have been available.
Milks, what about, sorry, I just want to say this. What about moving picks for future picks and then going after the abundance of young RFAs that are available right now?
Absolutely. You could do that too. You could totally do that too. I mean, there's so many RFAs
That's
going
what
into
I'm
this
saying.
year.
I can't believe we haven't. I mean, I think we'll start seeing that soon, but I'm surprised we haven't seen an offer sheet yet.
Yeah, I mean, and to kind of add on top of that argument for Pittsburgh, okay, yeah, it'd be beneficial to go after NHL ready guys. Dozer, I like your idea. But the one thing I will say is I don't think in any way, shape, or form Pittsburgh's like anywhere near a playoff team. So no matter what they do, I don't think that they're in contention next year. And we kind of heard rumors that got shut down that there's a possibility that Crosby might not be a Penguin at some point. But that kind of all got kicked to the ground real quick. Truth be told, Crosby's worst season is most players' best season. He's been in the league for 20 years, has not been under a point per game. He has, I think he could give us another 5 solid seasons in the NHL. So right now it's going to be a test for Dubas to put somewhat of a winning team around him, or a team that's capable of at least making a push of some sort, or deciding with Crosby, hey, like, you're either going to waste the last years of your career in the basement, or we could try to move you to a contender or some other team that you're willing to play for. So I think that's going to be a really unique situation because you don't see players like Sidney Crosby get moved,
Yeah.
like, from their franchises.
I mean, I
But
get the view. I get the view that Pittsburgh isn't really in any sort of playoff contention, but I feel like you should at least try to make that push where, like, a lot of these teams in the East aren't necessarily that much above and beyond better. It's such a dogfight. I mean, we saw it at the wild card. there's obviously the teams like Florida and Tampa who are just on another level, and you can pretty much
I mean,
expect
yeah,
them to
but
make the
if you were to
playoffs.
ask me to
But
put two teams in the basement, those two teams are Buffalo and Pittsburgh. Like, I completely agree, but I feel like those teams that are the odd teams out, I think Pittsburgh's in that conversation no matter what moves they make this offseason. Like, they already said they're moving on from Malkin. If you're already saying that you're moving on from Malkin, I'd ship him out this offseason and try to get as much as you can for him. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about the
I think he's going
farewell,
to
like,
retire at the end of the
whether he
year.
retires
So
or not.
like,
Would you rather, like, I mean,
I don't
he
think you're
didn't
going to get
announce that
that
he's
much for
retiring.
him. I think he
Yeah, but I'm
did.
saying,
I think he said.
did
I
he,
think
did
he
he
said this
announce?
is my last season going into like. I think he said this is going to be his last season.
Isn't that what Curl also told Boldy about his time in Minnesota?
That is actually. I did get that report. I did get that report.
No,
So
but I mean, I get the argument. I want Crosby to succeed. I would love to see him raise another Stanley Cup, but just not with the Penguins. I've had enough of that. But yeah, I mean, kind of on the topic of free agency and all of that. I mean, we've had a lot going on, and while we were talking about all of that, Morgan Geekie did officially get re-signed by the Bruins, 6-year deal, $5.5 million AAV.
it's a good deal. That's a
That
great
is a
deal.
good deal.
Live reaction, Milks. I just wanted to get your reaction. I mean, good deal.
I
Initial
mean,
thoughts. Why?
Morgan Geekie, since joining the Bruins, has only shown that he's getting better and better. You can see it in all of his points. I can try to find those real quick, but I know each season he's progressively gotten better. He made a big step this year playing on Pasta's line. I know Pasta likes playing with him. He had a 30-goal year, and he was really the only other guy that you could point to when you needed a goal. So getting him for 6 by 5.5, I think, is a great deal, especially when you're looking at all these changes in the salary cap. And I think you arguably could have gotten him a $7+ million deal if you looked at the season he had. So I am really happy with that. I always had a feeling that we were going to keep him. I knew that we had continual contract negotiations with him, but happy to see Geeky stay in. He'll be playing with Pasta for a while. And we got some excitement in Boston.
Yeah, great deal. I think I expected him to get a little bit more than that, but at worst, he's going to be a second-line center for you guys. He's probably going to be your first-line center with Pasta because of how good they played together last year. I mean, nothing really else to say. Very good AAV. 6 years isn't bad. He's pretty young, I think.
Yeah, he's like 23,
28.
24. Or wait, I might be way
24.
wrong. I
I
might be
don't
way
think he's
wrong
that
on
young.
that. I might have been thinking of his brother.
Morgan Geekie, as of right now, is 26. So you guys are splat in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually
Yeah.
not that bad.
Yeah, pretty young. 6-year deal takes him to 31, 32.
Yep,
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good signing. We've had a couple signings. JJ Peterka not only got traded to Utah, he also signed with Utah. He signed for 5 years at 7.7 million AAV, but the trade entailed Josh Doan and Michael Kesselring. Dozer, that's a name that you pointed out last pod. When you saw this trade, like, I don't know. Personally, I've heard some things. JJ Peterka, it was just time for him to move on from Buffalo. I think that he's a great pickup for Utah. I think Utah's been doing a lot of really good stuff. Right now with Buffalo, I feel like it's so hard to predict anything with Buffalo. Like, I feel like that's just where careers go to die recently. I mean, recently, over the last decade. So, I mean, initial thoughts on that, like, just as a whole.
Yeah, initial thoughts. Very good for Utah. Utah's got a great young core they're building over there. I think they gave away 2 solid NHL pieces that are young, which I think that's what Buffalo was going at for this deal. They wanted NHL ready players. They didn't want to get worse. You know, they, 14 straight years they've missed the playoffs now.
Mm-hmm.
They want to at least try to compete.
I mean,
we
you
all
can
know
make it 15. Make it 15.
15, yeah. We all know that we all know it's going to be 15, but I don't think they're Peterka wanted, from what I've heard, Peterka wanted out. He didn't really want to re-sign in Buffalo. He was an RFA. So I think Buffalo got a decent return. They got 2 NHL players, but like you said, that Buffalo's where careers go to die. So you never know. Kesserling and Doan both looked pretty good in Utah, but you never know when they go to Buffalo. And now that Paterka's out of Buffalo, I could see him doing what all the other Buffalo players did when they left. Look at Reinhart. Look at Ryan O'Reilly, Jack Eichel.
I love that you brought that up because so many people were saying that about Radim Murka and kind of his initial reaction. Like you guys saw that picture of him at the presser. He looked all upset in a Buffalo jersey. Meanwhile you had Roger McQueen in Disneyland by the 28th pick when he got selected 10th overall. So tales of two different players, but Murka looked so upset, and I saw a tweet that made me laugh. It was just like, as a matter of fact, he should be happy. He should just know that he's going to get traded in his prime and have a Stanley Cup within 5 to 10 years. So, like, he should already just size up his ring. And I'm like thinking, you know what? Buffalo's been in such a standstill for so long. When players get traded there, it's it kind of confuses me to say, oh, that's a good trade for Buffalo. Like, I don't feel like it's good for any player to go to Buffalo just with what Buffalo's been for the last 15 years. So I love that trade from Utah standpoint. I think it's a good trade for Buffalo too, despite everything that we've been saying. Now it's just a matter of time for Buffalo to kind of figure it out. That's it. That's all I got for
Just
Buffalo. Figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I personally love this trade for Utah, just like you guys. If you look at how Utah is kind of structured for the years to come, they have Paterka now signed for 7.7 by 5. They have Clayton Keller signed for 7.15 for the next 3 seasons. They have Gunther signed for 7.142 for the next 5 seasons. So him and Paterka will end at the same time. Those are all very, very good contracts for players who are superstars in the making. You have Paterka, who's 23, Gunther, who's 22, and Keller, who's 26. And you already know what you're going to get from Clayton Keller. He is a dog. And then defensively, like, they have some pretty good contracts there with, like, Mikhail Sergachev.
And let's not forget, I don't know if you mentioned this name and I just didn't realize, but they also just selected Caleb Dejournay, or however you say his name, at 4th overall.
They just got a very good center who, again, another one of those players that you really want to see in the NCAA, because you're gonna really feel the buzz around these players, because you're gonna get to be able to watch these games. I don't get coverage of these Canadian League games, so I don't really get to see anything but their highlights. If they're playing in the NCAA, it's gonna, first of all, bring so many more fans to the game, and it's gonna elevate the level of hockey being played. And it's going to be really cool to be able to watch prospect after prospect after prospect. Like, I'm getting excited talking about it, but
I don't know when. I want to say something.
I don't know when the portal for all this necessarily opens or closes, but I feel like a lot of teams are going to start throwing around money to bring these kind of big dogs in that can, really elevate a program.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I want to say, I was listening to Morning Cup of Hockey with Johnny Lazarus, and they were mentioning they were speaking to someone who they were speaking to the commissioner, I want to say, of one of the CHL leagues. It was either, I want to say it was the OHL, maybe the WHL, but it wasn't the QMJHL. They were talking about how they should just combine all 3 Canadian hockey league, the major junior leagues, and make it into one super league for Canadian junior hockey. And Laz said it perfectly. He goes, that's what college hockey is going to become. And that got, like, just thinking about that just like got me all like jittery. I was just like, yo, college hockey is going to be so sick in a handful of years. Like, all these players are going to develop wherever they develop. I feel like the new route's going to be, for most players, is going to be major junior in Canada or the USHL in the US, and then they're all going to intermingle at the NCAA level. And the NCAA is going to become a big fat just super league of junior players just battling it out. So I just think that this sport's going in such a good direction, and it's such a good time to be a fan, especially with a bunch of the rule changes that we've seen.
Yeah, 100%. Very exciting time to be a hockey fan. You got it's just been very eventful ever since the Four Nations really, I feel like, sparked a lot of viewers back into hockey, and now you have even more excitement. I don't know if we touched up on it or if we will, but they just came out with a new set of rule changes that Gary
Yep, the new
Bettman had
CBA
proposed.
agreements.
So I mean, I think if you were to put a stock into a sport right now, you could definitely throw it in hockey because it's just going to keep growing and growing, especially with all the new changes that are coming.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of teams are making a lot of moves, as we've kind of realized over the course of our conversation so far. But one team that's made a couple really, really big splashes, and it kills me to say that while I root for the team that's on my hat, is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They re-signed John Tavares 4 years by just under $4.5 million AAV, and I think that's a steal. By every means, I think it's a steal. John Tavares is 37, 38 years old. He had 37, 38 goals this year at his age, and he was 1 point under a point per game. So John Tavares had an unreal season. He could have taken a lot more in the free agent market from any other team, but he decided to take a hometown discount, take a lot. I didn't think he was going to take less than 6 from anywhere, including Toronto. So seeing him under 5, seeing him
Crazy.
under 5, under 4.5 is just jaw dropping to me. And then the second Toronto deal happened today. Matthew Nyes, 6 years, just under $8 million. Once again, I think that's a steal. So, one obviously veteran player, one player that's making his name in the league, both locked up for the next close to handful of years, both of them. So,
I don't know what sort of manipulation that the GM of Toronto is doing. I don't know if he's trying to convince them that by taking less money, they're magically going to win the cup next year because we all know that's not going to happen anyway. So the John Tavares signing is bogus to me because he could have hit the open market and made eight mil plus AAV. So for him to take almost half of that off, and then you look at Matthew Nyes seeing reportings that if he wanted an 8-year deal, it would have had to be upwards around the 8x10 range. And then he goes and signs like a 6x7.5. That's another ridiculous deal. So I think Toronto players might just have to be a little smarter and realize that even if you take the pay cut, it's really not going to matter because
saying it
because
how it is.
because you guys can't win in the big moments. I don't care what you do. And they're probably going to try to make a run at Brad Marchand. And I swear to God, if Brad Marchand is a Toronto Maple Leaf, I'm going to be very conflicted. I'm going to be very conflicted.
Leaves the Bees to the two biggest rivals of the Bees, and then
But,
wins
he
cups with
could
both
come
of them.
back. There's also reportings that he's in the mix to come back to the Bees, which I wouldn't mind. But anyway, I mean, great job by Toronto. That's a fleece. You're going to have plenty of cap space to work with in free agency and, potentially make some other bigger moves. But, I think if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs player, you just got to keep your head screwed on tight.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like a new movement in Toronto. Dozer, I'll let you go, but I just think that that's real surprising to see right now.
what I find interesting is that the question mark going about the Leafs going into the offseason, or at least at the beginning of the year, was how are they going to re-sign Tavares, Nyes, and Marner? And I know Marner said he's not going back, but I just checked their cap space. They have $13.5 million. Like, with those two deals, realistically, they could bring back Marner, but that just leaves them $14 million to spend elsewhere to improve their team because of the two steals of deals they got with Nyes and Tavares, and that's interesting. Like you said, Melks, Toronto's never gonna make it past the first or second round. They made it to Game 7 with Florida. That's their best chance they're gonna have for the next 10 years. So it doesn't matter what they do.
Congratulations. Made it to Game 7.
Yeah, I mean,
That's their
let's go from a team that can't figure out how to win to a team that just won it for the second straight year. The Florida Panthers did exactly what I feel like everyone knew that they were going to do. Sam Bennett's going back on an 8x8 contract. I love that. I think he could have gotten more on the open market. Obviously, the number 10 was being thrown around there. I don't know if it would have gotten that high, but he's partying with his teammates. He's at the bar. I'm not going anywhere. Everyone's chanting, sign him 8 more years. He made it clear he didn't want to go anywhere. He would take what I think is a hometown discount to stay in Florida where he wants to play. And Florida's building a scary culture down in South Beach. Did you guys expect Bennett to stay? You mentioned Marchand. I think that there's a chance that he might take a pay cut to stay there too, but that's a conversation for after this.
Yeah, I think we all expected Bennett to come back.
No, you got it.
All right. Yeah, we all expected Bennett to come back. And you said bogus about Tavares. I think Bennett is even more bogus. That Florida's been doing it for the last 2 years, and they're going to do it next year as well. They're going to get Marchand for – I think Marchand's going back to the Panthers. You said it. He's going to get a cheap deal to stay. And I think it's more bogus. The fact they got Reinhart for 8.5 last year, and now they get Bennett for 8 this year. They both would have been – I mean, Reinhart probably would have been the biggest forward on the free agent market last year, and Reinhart probably would have been two and pretty close to Marner in AAV.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
I got Reinhart for over 10 in Chell in franchise mode. Like, I can't even get him for less than 10 in a video game. It's a cheat code.
Yeah. I think this deal for Bennett is a great deal for Bennett. He definitely earned himself more than he, I would say, I don't want to say deserves, because I like when guys get paid the money they're worth. I wouldn't necessarily say, it's so conflicting to me. This is the point I'm trying to make. If you look at every season he's had, the most points he's had in a regular season is 51 points this year. Prior to that, he had 41, 40, 49. Those are pretty below, like, subpar numbers. And I get it. He's an amazing playoff performer. He's a gritty guy that you really want on your team. He's going to get under other teams' skin. You know, this year more than anything, he proved that he can play in the biggest moments, which is huge. But to give a guy 8x8 who barely cracks 50 points in the regular season, I personally think is a little crazy. But then again, like, props to him. He had an amazing run this year, and that definitely is why he earned the money he earned. I do think it's crazy, though, that he is getting paid almost on the same caliber as a Sam Reinhart, who is a Selke finalist. He's had a 100-point season, and he's had a 50-goal season. And then he's also not that far off from Carter Verhaeghe. I think he's getting paid more than Carter Verhaeghe.
7.
Which I think is crazy as well. And Tkachuk. He's getting paid more than Matthew Tkachuk. Like, take a second and think about that.
No, he's not. Matty Tkachuk's making 9.5.
Tkachuk's got over 9.
Oh, I thought Tkachuk was on a 7.5. That's my bad. But still, relatively close. And if you were to, put those two on a pedestal together, Matthew Tkachuk is like 5 levels higher, I would say.
Okay, I think that he deserves every goddamn penny he's getting. There are regular season performers. There are playoff performers. That team's salary cap situation is so perfect right now. I wouldn't think twice if I was Florida offering him that contract. As a matter of fact, I think that, according to their salary cap, they have enough money to even offer Marchand a similar or not a similar contract, but the similar AAV. I don't think it happens, but my point is they are so well-rounded around their salary cap, and they have pretty much their entire core. They have Barkov, Tkachuk, Reinhart, Bennett, Verhaeghe, Anton Lundell, Seth Jones, Gustav Forsling, all signed through the 29-30 NHL season. We're going into the 25-26 season. That is disgusting, and the salary cap is only going up. Give him his money, no questions asked.
Yeah, I was just looking at their caps too. They all expire at the same time, and the cap's only going up. So they have their core pieces already set in place, and they're only going to get better, which is a scary part. They just went 2 back-to-back. They got $12 million cap still. and the cap's only going up. So they're
Yeah,
going to
and
be scary for a while.
going back into that, I know, Solon, you want to talk about the Marchand situation. Right now, it's between keeping Ekblad or Marchand, and I don't think there's a world where you can keep both, to be honest, because Ekblad is going to definitely cost you a little more. If they sign Marchand to a $5 or $6 million deal,
Possible. I think it happens.
I don't even think I'm going to turn on the playoffs next year. Like, it's not going to be fun. I'm just going to watch a team that I hate steamroll everyone again, and then watch Marchand lift the cup and party. Nah, this can't happen, guys. This cannot. The hockey gods cannot let this happen. They can't keep getting away with this. This is getting ridiculous. It's actually getting ridiculous.
I mean, listen, I also think that they get rid of Ekblad just because his asking price is going to be so high because he's a right-handed defenseman. I mean, look at the right-handed defenseman market right now. Like, I could only imagine what Bouchard is going to get. I think Bouchard gets 10 even. But I mean, I think he might give Edmonton a bit of a discount because he obviously knows the situation with McDavid. So like he might even settle for like 9.95. I don't see him going below 9.5 because that's what Dobson got. That's why I think he gets 10. But that's I think the Panthers have figured out the system. But buckle up and don't open up your TV for playoffs for the next handful of years at least.
Just wait till
But
Bobrovsky leaves. Just wait till he's gone. They can't.
um,
Like, it can't keep happening.
but kind of now sticking over to Edmonton, I briefly mentioned them. They got rid of Evander Kane. Sent him over to Vancouver, his hometown team, for a fourth round pick, 117th overall, which ended up being David Lewandowski. Personally, when I first saw that trade, I thought it was a good trade for Edmonton. Cap dump. I liked it. I liked the pickup for Vancouver, but at the same time, it didn't really make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me because of everything that happened with JT Miller this past season, which led to him getting traded to the Rangers. You get rid of a guy like JT Miller, and then you bring in a bigger pain in the ass in Evander Kane. So I could only imagine how that's going to work out. Does it help that it's his hometown team? Maybe. I don't want to say probably, but maybe. But what did you guys think about that Evander Kane move? I expected him to get moved. I didn't know when or where, but yeah.
Yeah, instant thought cap dump for sure for the Oilers. They're gonna do it again. I think Arvidsson might be the next guy that they're gonna dump for basically a third, fourth, whatever they could get. But yeah, going to the Vancouver Canucks side, their last year and a half has been so discombobulated for me. I hate the direction they're going in, and not you don't want to be trending down when your best player is going to hit the open market soon. I think it's more than a 50% chance right now that Quinn Hughes is going to leave. He's already
And he's
said
made
it
it publicly
before.
known.
Yeah, like the way the Canucks are going, they just keep trending down the last couple of years. Besser's leaving. They tried to re-sign. I saw a report they had another effort to re-sign him, and he kind of shot it down right away. So there's no way they're bringing him back. And yeah, I don't like where the Canucks are going, and I think they're going to lose their franchise D-man in 2 years. And I think he's going to come to the Devils to join his
He's
two
going to the
brothers,
Rock.
which sucks for us because we're in the
Yep.
Metro and we're Rangers and Islander fans.
That would be the coolest thing ever. I would love that so much just for the story. But anyway, am I right now? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. We
Am I
hear you.
bugging? Oh, you can?
No.
My screen's bugging. All right, anyway. The move itself for Evander Kane. For Vancouver's standpoint, they're just kind of adding like a top 9 wing, like a top 9 depth forward to their wing. I don't really think it's going to make them any better. And I don't really think it's going to make them any worse. I think it's just kind of someone you can throw in the lineup and, maybe get you 20 goals a season. And then he's also kind of a gritty guy. I think he's going into the last year of his contract too. So you're not weighted down to a long-term contract, especially if the year doesn't pan out. So I think it's kind of like a net even trade. Canucks get a top 9 forward, a guy you can plug into the lineup and who can play in the NHL, who's proven himself, and then the Oilers win because they get a cap dump and they have plenty more to go. I really think they need to get rid of Darnell Nurse, but I have no idea how they're going to manage that. Maybe trade him for like a 5th round pick or something. No, not a 5th, but
Yeah, I mean,
definitely got to find a way to get him off the books because that salary is killing them right now.
yeah, I mean, you kind of said it, like, you thought the trade was even. I think it is even. I think Edmonton did what they had to do. I think Vancouver brought in something that they did. I just thought that it was kind of odd that they got rid of JT Miller for whatever issues, locker room issues, and then you bring in Vander Kane, who is a Vander Kane. But now, sticking with Edmonton, the former Bruin Trent Frederick signed what I think may be one of the funniest contracts I've ever seen in my life. An 8-year, $3.85 million a season contract. We initially texted about this when it first happened. Everyone was expecting it. It's not like it was unexpected, but I think that when it became official, it kind of like hit home. Like, wow, you signed an 8-year deal for just under $4 million, and I don't think that you proved in the slightest that you deserve that contract. And the fact that it's an 8-year deal is kind of mind blowing. But it's a very movable contract, so I'm not looking at Edmonton like, oh wow, like you really screwed up here. But it was definitely a head scratcher.
I mean, I love the deal from Trent Frederick's standpoint, you know. I don't think he's earned himself a contract like that based on what he's proven in the NHL. And especially, I find it even more interesting that the Oilers wanted to keep him that long term, considering he didn't really show much in the playoffs. Like, you guys brought
But
him
he
in.
was also hurt, which I'll give him that, but still that doesn't.
You're hurt. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone's hurt in the playoffs. Like, at the end of the day, he didn't really make a difference. Nugent Hopkins broke his hand, and he was still scoring goals. Trent Frederick, I wouldn't even say was playing what his role was for the Oilers, which is kind of a bigger body and, you know, someone who is kind of like an enforcer in a way, because you know he's not afraid
He's
to
a
drop the
power
mitts.
forward. That's what
You
I
know
would
he's not
consider him.
he's not afraid to drop the mitts, and you didn't really see him getting into any scrums. You didn't really see him getting in front of the net, getting dirty. I don't even know if he scored a goal in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I
I think he
just
had
find
one.
it weird that you give a guy such a long-term contract. I get that it's probably going to be looked at as kind of a steal because you get a third-line depth center at a relatively cheap contract, but
Yeah,
it's not. Yeah, you know.
I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go for a steal. This deal kind of reminds me of the Pierre Engvall deal that the Islanders gave out. I mean, I think Trent Frederick is a lot
Yeah.
better of a player than Engvall. Like Engvall was up and down in the league. I think Frederick will be consistent third or fourth line player. But Melks, I completely agree. Like, what did Trent Frederick prove to get an 8-year deal? He had 4 points in the playoffs, 22 games, 1 goal. He didn't really prove anything, and I was really surprised that the Oilers, like, basically this was their first move that they made. Like, you have so many other question marks. You have Bouchard to RFA. You got to save up money for McDavid next year. I can't believe they made Frederick, I guess, their priority and bringing him back for an 8-year deal. That's like crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we all expected the deal to happen, but I don't know, kind of just seeing it go through, it made me chuckle. I was like, wow, like, all right, he's set. He knows
I mean,
he did
good
good
for
by
Frederick.
himself.
Good for
Yeah.
Frederick, yeah.
Yeah, no, he definitely did good for himself. But another something else, like that long contract kind of made me scratch my head. One thing that we kind of brought up initially when Jonathan Toews signed with Winnipeg was how bonus heavy his deal was. We've seen a number of bonus heavy deals since that contract, and one of them is to keep Dallas Stars captain Jamie Benn in Dallas. He signed a one year, $1 million contract. I think that's unreal, but he's got a lot of bonus
What?
signings in that. But yeah, I mean, I can't really see Jamie Benn anywhere other than Dallas. I think he's earned the right to stay in Dallas. You know what I mean? Like, aside from the fact that he's your captain, like, he's led him to a Stanley Cup. He's been to, or Stanley Cup final, excuse me. Stanley Cup final. He's led them to 3 straight Western Conference finals. Give him a chance to win in Dallas. I love the move. Yeah, I don't think you could really be a hater on that 1 by 1 for your captain. That's unreal.
I mean, Ben, that was a great deal. The bonus, I don't really know the bonus structure, but I think if you could keep your captain in Dallas where he belongs for $1 million, that's a steal any day of the week. Good for Dallas. I still don't think they will get over the hump next year, but we'll see. There's still a lot of moves to come.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the conception that Jamie Benn did want to stay in Dallas. It's where he wants to end his career. Made a great career playing there, captain of the city. I could very well see this being his last year out. So I like the move for Dallas. Keep him there. Get him on a cheap deal. Try to make this the year that you can really get over this hump. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Robertson as well. But that's something that we'll have to continue to watch, because there's a lot of speculation going on right now, and he's obviously a superstar caliber player.
Yeah, I mean, the second bonus heavy contract that I wanted to point up was Ottawa re-signing Claude Giroux, a 1-year, $2 million deal. He's got just under $3 million in potential signing bonuses. I kind of just looked. Jamie Benn has $3 million in signing bonuses available. So then again, it's a trend that we're seeing very often, or as of late, and I don't hate it for the older players, but I don't know if that's kind of the way that it's going to start shaping out. I don't know how I feel about it, but for the time being, at least the players that have signed those types of contracts, I don't have an issue with, just because they're veterans in the league. They've earned the right, and they're doing their teams favors by signing for less against the cap. To some more exciting stuff, free agency is right around the corner, July 1st. Right now, as we're recording this, it's June 29th. We still got some big names out there. Marner, Ehlers, Besser, as we mentioned before, Marchand, Ekblad, just a few unrestricted free agents. Marner, biggest name out there right now. There's been talks about him going to Vegas. Vegas somehow seems to land all the big fish. If that happens with Marner again, I don't know how they keep doing it. Obviously, Pietrangelo just announced earlier today that he's out for, at minimum, the rest of next season due to a few major surgeries he needs to do this summer. So that's obviously, that benefits Vegas in terms of the cap, but Vegas just seems to be where players want to be. Not surprising, but where do you guys think Marner goes? And if it's Vegas, like, how do you think Vegas just keeps sucking in and maintaining all these superstars from all around the league?
So I always kind of had Marner in between the Hurricanes and Vegas, because I personally think Marner's going to try to go to a team that still has the opportunity to win a cup. I don't think he wants to be part of a rebuild like in Chicago or San Jose. So I think the two best suited teams to do that have the cap space to afford him are the Canes in Vegas. And if you compare those two franchises, I would also probably want to play in Vegas. And that's due to the atmosphere, the city, I mean, down the line, Carolina is a great place to play. They have a great fan base, great head coach. I just don't know what the proper direction for them is, because they seem to just, kind of like the Dallas Stars, they just get stomped whenever they get to the conference finals. And they look like such a good team at the beginning of the playoffs, but there's something that's missing, and I don't know if Mitch Marner is the piece that's going to solve what's missing. At least in Vegas, they've done it before. They've done it recently. they already have very key pieces to this team, and I think you add Marner to Jack Eichel's line, and I mean, who knows how many points they're able to put up together. And the other thing that's kind of interesting that I've been seeing a lot lately is there's obviously been a ton of buzz around, Vegas potentially trading for Marner's signing rights, and how if Marner does sign with Vegas right away, that Toronto was gonna try to um, do something with tampering fees or something. I thought that
Investigate
was
them
pretty.
for tampering.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. But at the end of the day, like between those two teams, I don't know what Marner does. I don't know if he's in it for the money or if he's in it for the franchise. But
Yes, keep
I
going.
personally see him landing in Vegas at this
Yeah,
point.
I've been saying it for the whole time. I really thought he was going to go to Carolina. I think Carolina really needs a guy after they traded for Rantanen, and then they had to trade him back away, which they ended up getting good value for him. But I do think they need a guy. But after all this stuff coming out about Marner and Vegas, and I think it's inevitable. I think Vegas is the evil team, like we say, evil for the Panthers, or the evil team of the West. They manage a way to find any player that they want, any superstar they want. They find a way to get them, and I think it's just inevitable that Marner will get there. And like to to transfer to the Hurricanes, I think they're going to lose out on Marner, and that's going to be a hit for them. And I think they're going to make a big splash and overpay one of these other forwards. I would be very surprised that if they miss out on Marner. I would be very surprised if they don't get Ehlers or Besser, maybe even both. They have like 20 plus million in cap space. I think they're making moves either way, and I don't think they're gonna get Marner anymore with all these rumblings and rumors.
Yeah, this whole Marner thing, it's been going on. It feels like too long because all we do is hear about Marner, Marner, Marner. Teams interested in him. Like you said, it seems inevitable at this point. It feels like every Marner conversation we're having includes the Vegas Golden Knights. So it almost seems like a matter of when, not if. And I'm also hearing a lot about a sign and trade, which, I mean, Milks, you said that Vegas has the cap to sign him. Right now, Vegas has less than 6 million. They have like just over 5 million in cap. So they'd have to make moves to be able to fit Marner within the cap. But like we said, Vegas always finds a way. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Um, you mentioned Nikolai Ehlers, Brock Besser. You wouldn't be surprised if they ended up in Carolina. I feel like those are also just two names that have been tossed around a lot generally. Both of them, the Islanders kind of in the conversation for both. Right now, do I think that they should go for one of them? I think that it would be amazing. But if I had to choose between the two, it's tough. It's tough. I'd probably say Ehlers. I feel like he's just a better fit for what we got going on. Just a more, what's the word? I feel like you know what you're getting with Ehlers. He plays a very simple game. He goes out there, he does what he has to do, and that's that. Not flashy in the slightest, but any particular place that you guys think that those two players go, come July 1st.
Yeah, I got a good take for this. Like I said, Ehlers. I think Ehlers is going to go to Carolina. I'm pretty confident on that if they miss out on Marner. But Besser, I got going to Minnesota. He's a Minnesota boy. He went to where did he go? I know he went to somewhere in Minnesota. Was it Duluth? I don't know. But that's where
Brock Besser.
I
I
got
think. I think Besser went to Nodak, unless I'm.
Nodak. Okay.
Yeah, he did go to Nodak.
Yeah, you guys are right, but I think he's gonna go to Minnesota. They need another forward up in their top six, especially a winger, scoring winger, other than Kaprizov, and I think that's a pretty good fit for him.
I actually really like those takes. I personally, I don't feel like I have good landing spots for either of these teams because the market's so wide and you don't really know how these players are gonna react to the offers they're receiving. But what I do personally think is that from all of the available big UFA names, I think they're all going to try to sign with teams that, again, are more playoff ready teams than teams that are trying to rebuild. I don't think any of these big names that we've mentioned are going to go and target teams in a rebuild, and I think that's kind of interesting in a sense, because what if a team is like, I feel like you have these teams that have so much salary cap, but they have so much more room to grow and like become better. Is really bringing on a guy like this and then probably overpaying him worth it? To the player, is the money worth it? It's such a tricky game here, and I think for a lot of these UFAs, they're gonna want to take probably a little less money than what these teams with tons of salary cap are gonna have to offer in order to play on a team that is kind of in a championship window, or will be in a championship window, maybe next year or the year after.
I mean, I also have kind of a take on Ehlers, something that I heard uh, earlier today. So hypothetically, Ehlers walks, he leaves Winnipeg. Winnipeg now goes for Besser as his replacement. And I kind of thought about that, and I was like, like I don't hate the idea of that. How realistic is it? I don't know, but that's like one possibility that I kind of heard earlier today that I was like, wow, that's something that I didn't really think of. Ehlers doesn't come back, now you just go after the next big fish in Besser. So those are kind of another two names that are real interesting to see what happens. I'm pretty sure that we've covered a majority of the big name UFAs just throughout this entire conversation. I want to touch up on some of the restricted free agents, obviously, because that whole ordeal is different. It's a different process. Got guys like Evan Bouchard still unsigned. I don't know if we all did, but I think we all agreed that we think that he's staying with Edmonton. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he is. I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to take a little bit less to stay there. But then you got guys like Keandre Miller, Dozer. This is obviously your team. What do you like? Is he staying? Do they get offer sheeted? I mean, do you want them to resign?
Yeah, it's tough because he is a right-handed D man. I think they're
He's
gonna wait
left-handed.
for
Keandre's left.
left-handed. Yeah, you are right. Left-handed D man. I should have known that. I think that I don't know what I want them to do anymore, because I think they definitely tested out the value on him, and I think they already would have made a deal if they liked what they saw. I don't think they're getting as good a return as they want. They have another RFA, Will Cooley, that I like a lot more, and I think teams are interested. From what I've heard, teams are interested in RFAing him, and if I'm the Rangers, I'm making him my main priority. He is one of the only young NHL ready players that they have that showed something for them last year. They have Laugh, he had a down year, but going back to Keandre Miller, I still think he eventually gets traded. I really thought he was going to get traded in the offseason, but I think now the Rangers are going to find a way, give him another bridge deal, maybe 2 to 3 years, $5 million, and then see what they do, like gauge his value again at the trade deadline, and see what happens. I think that's the most realistic outcome now. I think they passed their time to make that trade, and I know they're still trying to look up to clear some cap space to make some runs at some players, but I think at this point you just kind of got to stick with it and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I think he stays. I don't think it's out of the question that he gets moved, not in the slightest, but I think that opening night he will be on the roster. Dud, any specific thoughts on Keandre? I know we spoke about this a little bit. I know that you think he's going to stay. I don't know if you change your mind at all throughout the show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally in tune with the whole with New York's situation and everything going on there. I do think he stays because I think you can probably sign him for a pretty cheap deal relatively. And he does have, like, we've seen flashes of the upside he can have. His game hasn't fully come together yet, but I think it's worth the risk when you're not having to pay him a high-end contract. So I think it's a good idea to keep him, especially when you look at New York's defensive core right now, and it's not the strongest, right? And he's a pretty big body who can be a physical force. So yeah, I say why not keep him? I bet you could probably sign him to like a four mil AAV. I feel like that's pretty fair. I don't know what the years would be, but I feel like if the Rangers were gonna move on from Keandre, they would have tried to move him at the deadline when they were kind of out of the playoff contention at that point in time.
Yeah, they sold Ryan Lindgren at the deadline as well.
Yeah,
So
so
Yeah, I mean, from one New York team to another, the Islanders have a defenseman, a restricted free agent of their own, Alexander Romanov. He's another guy that I think stays with the team. I don't think the Islanders could let Romanov go. We spoke about this a little bit last pod. Now that we know what the Dobson situation is, Dobson's no longer an Islander. I think your left side on defense is pretty pat for next season. So assuming that Schaefer is in the lineup next year, you have Pelech, you have Schaefer, you have Romanov. So I feel like those are going to be your three left-handed D-men for next year. Now, looking ahead, when Aitchison gets in the lineup, when someone like Isaiah George is pushing for a spot, I think then it might be time to move someone like Pelech before his value deteriorates. He's 30 years old. He's still a pretty good shutdown defenseman when he's at his best. So I think Romanov stays. I think that the Islanders are probably most likely going to sign him to a similar contract to Keandre, 3-4 year deal, in my opinion. Right now they have him at 2.5 years average. I think that they might raise that a little bit, but we'll see what they decide and what they do. But I think Romanov stays with the Islanders. I think that is ultimately the smartest thing to do. I mean, you can't let Dobson and Romanov both walk in the same offseason. So
yeah, I think that's a guarantee. I think they'll find a way to keep him. There's no way you trade away your top D man and then let arguably your best left-handed D man, or yeah, Pelech
I
is
think
there,
he
but
is. I think
I would
Romanov is
say
better
he
than
is
Pelech.
too. Better two-way man too. But you can't let your best right-handed D man go, trade him away, and then get pick compensation back for your best left-handed D man. He's
Yeah, and then
definitely
on
coming
top of
back.
it, your right side is like crap right now.
Yeah, they got to pick somebody up to play this year, and I would expect them to pick up another lefty too, because I don't think Schaefer is going to be playing right away.
Which I agree, and I think that you could even give someone like Isaiah George, a 21-year-old, a shot, see what he makes. So I would say that the only guarantee is that they need another right-handed defenseman, and I think that you stick with the guy that was with you last year in Tony DeAngelo. He played half the season. He didn't disappoint. Realistically, I think he's going to be a cheap option. I think the Islanders should offer him a 2x2. They should lock him down for a couple years. I don't even think that he's going to get another NHL offer if it's not from the Islanders. So what's
He's
the
on his
harm?
last straw.
No, actually. So I think that Lou Lamoriello giving him a shot is maybe a green flag for Darsh to be like, okay, like let's see what you got. But at the end of the day, you need a right-handed defenseman. I think Tony DeAngelo is the best cheap option. I've heard rumors, not rumors that Aaron Ekblad's going to come to New York, but that the Islanders should shop for him. I think the asking price is going to be way too high. If you're not willing to pay Dobson a certain amount, not saying that Dobson's better than Ekblad or whatever, but if you're not willing to give someone like Dobson whatever he's asking, I don't necessarily think that you do that with Ekblad just because he has 2 rings. That's just me. I think DeAngelo is a smart choice, but back to the original topic, I think Romanov's a guarantee to stay if they let him walk or they get rid of him. That would really surprise me.
yeah,
One
I think you
last
guys hit it on the hammer there.
one last defenseman I kind of want to touch up on, and this one's interesting because I really like this defenseman from when he was in Colorado. Then he went to Buffalo, and now he's a restricted free agent, Bowen Byram. From what I've heard, from what I've read, from what I've done research, Elliot Friedman doesn't think that that Buffalo's getting what they want, or they're not hearing what they want to hear in return for Byram. There's supposedly 7 to 9 teams interested. The 7 teams that I have are Vegas, LA, St. Louis, Vancouver, Colorado, Philadelphia, and Toronto. And Darren Drager thinks that it's primarily between these big 3, Vancouver, Vegas, and LA. I think that if either of those 3 teams lands Byram, we're in trouble. And once again, we hear Vegas. What are your guys' thoughts on Byram? Where do you guys think he goes? And is there any chance that Vegas lands him too if they get Marner?
Yeah,
I mean,
you could go. You could go.
I love Byram as a player. I think he's obviously very high end talent and he can be very offensive minded. I don't see a way that Vegas is able to get both Bowen Byram and Mitch Marner, especially how heavy they are in the cap situation. And I think it makes a lot of sense for the Sabres to try to get some value for him, considering they already have a lot of great lefty defensemen in Dahlin and Owen Power.
And they just drafted another one.
And you have them locked up long term. So you kind of see the direction the Sabres are going. They draft a 6'6" big defenseman who can be your big body back there. They don't necessarily need more skill.
Big bodies.
Yeah, they don't need more skill on the back end. They need to primarily focus on honestly everything else, because nothing's going right there. And you got to try to get a package for him. Yeah, I mean, again, I think he personally, out of those 3 teams, would probably end up in LA. I really don't see a way in which Vegas would be able to get him.
I could even see him going to Vancouver, with Vancouver kind of prepping for the departure of Quinn Hughes.
That out of the 3 teams you said, I think Vancouver would make the most sense, and I think I'm lower on Byram than the both of you two. I know I did look up his stats; they were a lot better than I expected. Last year, he had 38 points. He played a full 82 games, but I mean, left-handed D-man. I just don't. He is still young, and I know he's offensive-driven game. I don't think he's a left-handed D-man that I would be willing to pay the amount of money that he's gonna want, because he puts up points. So those point-getting defensemen, they get paid, and I don't think he has a two-way game that's necessarily good enough for top tier playoff hockey for the money he's going to get. I think he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but you're going to have to pay him $7+, $8+ maybe $1 million to be a second line left-handed D-man. He's going to get you points, but I still think he's a little bit of a liability on the defensive.
I kind of cut out. Did you say that you think that he'd get like 7-8 mil?
Maybe not 8, but yeah, 7. I think he could get 6-7 mil.
40-point
getting defenseman.
I completely agree with the 6. I was going to say like 7, especially 8, I think is too much. I think that on his next deal, he could get 6. But then again, he's also 24 years old. He's very young, so he still has some room to grow. Obviously, in Colorado, he had a good situation with Cale Makar, guys like that, to kind of learn from. Not saying that his situation's much worse than Buffalo. Obviously, organization, team-wise, it is. But in terms of the players that he's around, he's playing alongside 2 first overall picks, Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power. So, I don't know. I think he could get 6. I think that if he's not the first man, but if he has more of a position or more of an importance, whatever you want to consider it, on whatever team he goes to if he leaves, I think that'll just help him elevate his game. I still think that he has a lot of room to grow. So, I think a team's going to give him a chance. He'll be the top guy or a top pair guy, top 2 guy, and make something out of it. I have no doubt in that. I feel like I've been following Byram for a minute, and I've really just enjoyed watching him grow, and I don't think he's done growing just yet. But moving on to the next, just because we're running a little low on time, but Capo Caco, I think he stays in Seattle. That's just me. I think he had a really good outing in Seattle for the close to 40 games that he played there. Or did he play 40 or 50 games in Seattle? But
I think
he was
50.
Yeah, but I know he played over half the season there. He put up good numbers. I think he's going to get re-signed. It's going to be now he's understood what it's like to play in Seattle. He's just going to come out guns blazing. And Dozer, we were talking about this. You said there was a hot take, but I said it once, I'll say it again. I wouldn't even be surprised seeing Kako get 60, 65 plus this year. I think that he really meshed well in Seattle, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him explode next season.
Yeah,
An
I
interesting
think it's
take.
hot. I've watched a lot of Kako through my years of being a Ranger fan. And honestly, I just looked at his stats. I thought his stats were better with Seattle than they ended up being. He played 49 games, 30 points, minus 11. Like, I mean, I know Seattle doesn't have a lot of good pieces. He's going to break out, or not break out. He broke out last year, but he's going to break into a top 6 role. He's going to get playing time, but I think 60 points is a little egregious for Kako. And I think Seattle's going to have some players that, if they're really competing, which I don't think they are, that they're going to want to play over him. I don't think he's that good of a two-way guy. He was minus 11. I mean, Seattle wasn't a good team. They weren't a good defensively solid team, but 30 points, 50 games, and a minus 11 isn't stats I would write home about. Like, he's gonna put up better stats because he's getting a top 6 role, but I still think it's hot. I hope I see it. I still love him as a player. He is second overall pick for the Rangers, but
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
it is kind of a crazy take. I will say that he's never exceeded 40 points in his career, but then again, I feel like he's had enough time within the league where now with a higher role, just less of the Big Apple's a big market. Seattle doesn't have that. So I feel like less eyes on him, a little bit more focus on hockey, less big city vibe, and he might excel. So who knows? But Dud, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, I think he definitely just needed a change of scenery from New York, and you kind of got to see again some flashes of what could be potentially going forward, and obviously I think it's a good idea to keep him considering you just traded for him. And being drafted second overall, you clearly have very high-end talent, and clearly it hasn't been unlocked yet. Maybe it'll help giving him a bigger role. Absolutely. Still a lot of things to work on in his game, but he's still a relatively young player, so it'll be kind of exciting to see how things pan out in Seattle, especially with all the stuff surrounding their team right now and kind of the players around him. You got such a wide variety in players between young guys you can fit with him and then your older veteran guys. So I don't know. I think it'd be cool to see him maybe get some minutes with Beniers. Maybe they can put something together for Seattle because last year was kind of a disappointing season for them.
one question I want to get in, because I know we're gonna wrap up soon, because we were talking about RFAs and possibilities of them getting offer sheeted. What do you guys have any teams in mind that you could see going after one of these RFAs, and what teams you think have the cap space plus the compensatory picks to go after one of these RFAs, big or small?
I could see Carolina offer sheeting.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was actually just about to check to see Carolina's draft picks.
They got a lot.
They have a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they have 2 firsts next year. They have all their picks and multiples in 2027. Yeah, Milks, I was going to double check myself, but I agree. I think Carolina, as scary as it sounds, is probably the most likely just because of their cap. The amount of draft picks and capital that they have, but then on top of it, they're competitive. Not saying that obviously plays a role because that's amongst the teams, but I feel like if a team does get an off sheet from Carolina, whoever that may be, it might be tough for that team to match that offer. So
Another
a
Now,
team
a
might
quick
need to just
follow-
say, "Give me the picks."
another
A quick
team that I
follow
want.
up question, because
Okay.
you guys both picked Carolina. Do you have anybody in mind you think they would go after as a forward RFA or even a defenseman RFA?
To be completely honest, I wouldn't be surprised. This might sound outrageous, and I'm not saying it's going to happen by any means, but maybe even a player like Evan Bouchard replace someone like Brent Burns, 40-year-old. He's leaving. Righty for righty. Veteran who held it down, and now you got a young righty to hold it down. So that's outrageous. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Like I said, I think Bouchard stays in Edmonton, but that is one guy that I would hate to see them go after because they're in the Metro, but I think that would be kind of a sick little mingle to see how those teams kind of clash that out.
Yeah, I mean that would be honestly insane, and I didn't even think about that. But I mean, it sounds like a very good fit. They got lockdown D-man and Slavin. They don't really have a forward puck driving defenseman, and I guess that was kind of Brent Burns for them last year, and he is a free agent now. So that does sound like a very good fit for him. They probably are looking into that. That actually blew my mind for a second. That is a real possibility.
Yeah, and they have the cap on top of it. Like we said, like you mentioned the draft picks, because I had the cap in my head. Then you mentioned the draft picks, and I was like, ooh, does Carolina have the draft picks? And now I see they have 2 firsts next year. Mind blowing. But that pretty much wraps up the pod for the day. Obviously, we lost one of the gyms due to technical difficulties. He might pop back in, he might not. But as always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We got July 1st right around the corner. I'm your host, Soa Mijas, alongside Michael Cardoza and Matt Milko before he disappeared on us. Till next time, peace.
Deuces.